So this is the first question we're going to look at for grade 12 for trigonometric equations. I promise you it's so easy. If you look here, you've got a 20 and a 20 over there, so that's good. And then you've got an x over here and an x over here. So they're just doing that compound angle stuff that we looked at a few lessons ago. So if we look at our formula sheet, what we have is a sin cos. So it's not going to be any of those. It's the sin cos one, so it's either this one or this one. We're looking for the one with the minus in between, so it's not going to be this one, it's going to be this one over here. But what we have is this part here, and we're going to simplify it into that over there. So what we can do is we can say that that whole piece in the bracket is actually just the same as the sin of 20 minus x. Okay, and then that's equal to 1. To get rid of this 2, we'll divide, so that's just going to be sin 20 minus x equals to 1 over 2. And there we go, we are back to grade 11 maths, where we could get the reference angle of this. So the reference angle is going to be shift sin over half, which is 30. We then work in the quadrants where sin is positive, so that's just going to be quadrants 1 and 2. See, so now it's just going to be like grade 11. It's just that little part that they can add on for grade 12. Grade 12, they don't add on too much in this section. So we know that we should always start with whatever's in the bracket. So 20 minus x equals, and then the reference angle is going to be very important. In quadrant 1, you don't add anything at this point in time. You literally just add your reference angle, plus n times 360, n is an element of z. For quadrant 2, we know that that's the 180 minus quadrant. 180 minus what? Your reference angle, okay, plus n times 360, n is an element of z. We then just get x alone, so we're going to end up with minus x equals to 10 plus n times 360, n is an element of z. We could then get rid of the minus by just doing that. Minus n times 360, n is an element of z. Some teachers ignore this minus. Don't stress about it. Just they'll mark both of them correct. Technically it should be a minus, but I know some teachers ignore that, and I do understand why. But if I was you, I wouldn't stress. Just change it to a minus, okay? Because we're dividing everything by a negative. Then for this part over here, we're going to get negative x is equal to 130 plus n times 360, n is an element of z, divide by the negative, and then we'll just change that to a negative like that. N is an element of z. Okay, and that's it. So that's how they'll add in some grade 12 stuff. Let's try another one. With number 2, you definitely don't want to use tan. Why? Because the angles are different. Okay, so you could use the grade 11 technique where you switch one of them. So you could switch that cos to sin of 90 minus x, and then you would go solve it from there. You know how we did in the previous lesson where you ignore this and you ignore that, and then you work in the quadrants where sin is negative, and then this part is your reference angle. But if we're in grade 12, we can also do the following. We can change sin 2x according to this formula. We can change it to 2 sin x cos x equals to minus cos x. Now guys, in maths you never want to do that. Okay, that's the same as having x squared equals to x. You never want to cancel out one of those x's. What you do is you bring the cos x over, and then you factorize. So we end up with 2 sin x plus 1, and then you get your two answers. So whenever remember when you end up with a situation like this in maths, students are super good with this part, but they always panic when they see this. Guys, when you see that, it just means x is 0, or, and then I know that you guys know how to do this one, x is 1. So what this means is that cos x is equal to 0, or 2 sin x plus 1 is 0, and so sin x would be equal to minus a half for this one over here. Now these two expressions become two new questions. I'm not sure if your teacher would have done this with you last year, but many teachers do this, and it's really good. If you have cos or sin or tan equal to 0, minus 1, or 1, there is a fast way to do the answers without having to do all the quadrants. The way it works is the following. If I draw myself a cos graph, then I know that cos is equal to 0 over here and over here. And it would keep doing that if I had to carry on drawing the graph, right? It would keep having answers there and there. So to summarize that, I can say that the answer is, what's the angle there? Well, that would be 90, right? Because cos goes through 0 at 90 degrees. And then that would keep repeating so this is 180 degrees, this is 270. So from 90 to 270 is 180 degrees. And that is all that you have to say for that answer over there. Whenever it's a 0, a -1, or a 1, you can just use the graph. Okay, I hope your teacher did that with you last year. It's really good. Then for sin x equals to -1/2, well, of course, this is just the normal type that we're really good at. These are the easiest ones. So you just get your reference angle. Remember, you don't use the negative on the calculator. So you say shift sin of 1/2, and that'll give you 30 degrees. We know that sin is negative in quadrants number 3 and 4. So whatever's over here goes here, goes here. Quadrant 3 is a 180 plus. Quadrant 4 is 360 minus. We then put the reference angle over here and over here. So that'll be 30 and 30 plus n times 360 plus n times 360. And so x is going to be equal to 210 plus n times 360. N is an element of z. And for this one, it will be x is equal to 330 plus n times 360. N is an element of z. So we've got this answer and then these two answers over here.